My great Uncle Joe, yeah, let's call him that, and I were never really close. I didn't even know I had a great Uncle Joe until I was in college. I was bored one day, complaining to my mom about how there's nothing to do around here when she mentioned him. He was in a nursing home close by, though she had never made an effort to stop by, understandably, given how far away she lived. I decided to drop by one weekend. Unfortunately, he had a rare advanced case of dementia, which was why he was in the nursing home in the first place. Still, I did drop by, if only for the fact that I had no close family living nearby. And great Uncle Joe did have his lucid moments at times. He seemed to remember who I was during some visits. There was one thing that he would always go back to, though, a secret hideout of sorts. At first, I thought he was talking about something like a tree fort that he made during his childhood. When I suggested that, he stared at me like I was crazy. No, he said. This was a real hideout, a steel-clad fortress hidden in the woods, meant as a fallout shelter in case the Soviets ever decided to end the world. I would have written it off as just some useless ramblings, but he seemed oddly focused while describing it. He described a location in the woods, near a stream, by a patch of trees that I committed to memory. I would go on walks in the forest from time to time anyway, and it was a few weeks later on one such excursion that I realized that I knew what great Uncle Joe was talking about. I thought it was just coincidence, but that rock formation really did look like what he described. I'm keeping this vague here so no one wanders into it like I did. Underneath the rock, hidden by a patch of grass so well that you never find it in 1,000 years unless you knew about it, I felt it. A steel hatch, and with a huge amount of effort, I opened it. I felt a manhole there, just barely big enough to let me squeeze through and find my footing on a ladder. I switched on my phone's light and descended. The ladder went about 50 feet deep before there was a sharp turn. I saw some old broken light bulbs scattered around as I made my way to the door and fumbled it open. There were 2 light switches. One of them didn't work, but the other one turned the lights on. The place was huge, almost as big as my whole dorm in college. It had 5 main rooms and about a dozen smaller ones, probably meant to be used as family rooms. In all, there were 4 generators, though only one worked. I could have easily spent days crawling through the place. Though a thick layer of dust covered everything, I could see that there was so much in there that was very valuable. Some of it was directly valuable, in the form of dollar bills, while there was also a stash of gold coins somewhere. They were probably prepared for everything. But that wasn't all. There was a library with books and newspapers, even a few comics which I think would fetch a pretty penny. There was food and basic medicines. The water purifier had broken down, but I think that was to be expected. There were a few things missing though. There were weapons but no bullets for some reason. I even saw some empty shells on the ground, as if they had been fired. I took some stuff. I was a broke college student, so don't judge, and made my way out, making a note to come back sometime later. The first thing I did the next day was go back to great Uncle Joe. I didn't know how aware he was of things, but I was sure that he would appreciate the knowledge that someone had found what he had built so long ago. As I began talking about it, something flashed across his eyes. It was unmistakable. Fear. He grabbed my hand and started babbling about how I must never go down there. I asked him why, and he kept saying that he had locked it down there. What's it? Evil, was all he said before he went back to sleep. I couldn't get him to say anything about it afterward. When I went back to the same spot, I noticed something odd. Near the entrance, there was a muddy spot, as if it had rained last night. I saw a footprint, but it was massive, nearly the size of my torso. I had never seen anything like it. It was a talon, though it had 6 toes. Unmistakably, something had wandered out of that shelter. I now understand why it was abandoned, why no one else had gone down there, what the bullets had been used for. In vain. It wasn't a shelter, though it had been built as one. It was a prison. and I had let the prisoner escape. A chill still creeps down my spine when I think about how fortunate I was to have not run into whatever it was down there. Maybe it was sleeping, or just didn't find me interesting enough. 8 people have recently gone missing in that area, for some of their remains have been found, though only bits and pieces of what were once people. I don't go out at night anymore. I make sure all my windows are locked, because I'm terrified. I'm terrified of what I've unleashed.